What if I told you that there was a blueprint to actually be able to make $250 million in just 5 years? Sounds kind of crazy, right? But if you stick with me, I will be able to break it all down for you and the steps that you guys can steal so that you can be able to plan out your own 8, 9, or even 10-figure company. From assembling to actually the team to mastering the growth, this video is gonna be your guide, and doesn't matter if you're a CEO or you're just kind of curious what it takes to build an empire. You definitely don't want to miss this one. This is a blueprint that I'm using over the next 5 years to build my business. And for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Osher Gross, and last year I generated about 30 million online using online advertising, and I make these videos so that you guys can benefit from it. So what's number one? I heard this quote recently and I absolutely loved it. Learn marketing from marketers. Step one. Next one was forget everything they said about anything outside of marketing. That's direct response marketing specifically. Then learn everything you can about product from tech bros, and then use 1 on 2. So use marketing to find a really good product. Here's why. Marketers are really good, especially direct response marketers, are really good at that one thing, marketing. Outside of that, you should be very careful about what you listen to, especially from a marketer. Now, the next thing is product. Product is product from tech bros, because tech is a product-based business. It's very much heavy based on features and product, about what value is being provided. So these guys really good at the thing that all that software is competing against one product versus another. That's all that software is. Marketing is very much touchy-feely, especially direct response marketing. However, usually the tech bros don't know marketing very well, and usually marketers don't necessarily know how to make a really good product. So the gold is where you can meet in the middle. And even if you're competing on the big stage with a lot of these private equity firms or large businesses, a lot of times they just aren't very good at either one of these things. They may be okay at it, but they're not going to be the best at both of them. So really the gold, and that's where how you get insanely rich, is combining really good marketing with really good product. Sounds kind of simple, but at least if you understand it, you can identify what skills that you need to go out and get, then the more successful you're going to be. Because if you have no language to be able to describe the thing that you want to do or get, you will not be able to do it. I think this was in 1984 or something like that. They didn't have a word for freedom. Maybe I'm misquoting this, but there was something where because they had no word for freedom, they didn't know how to describe the thing that they were lacking or the thing that they wanted, depending on how you wanted to view 1984. I generally think it's a dystopian book, not a comedy or not a blueprint. So so that just goes to show you want to make sure that you have the language to be able to describe what you want to do. And that's the same thing, especially for the rest of the items on this list. So this is the first part of the blueprint, marketing and product. Now, the next part is multi-step process. Let's talk about that. So first off, how did I even get here? I was feeling very lost. I had just exited one of my businesses, and I was like, man, I don't know what to do. I was sitting with one of my mentors who just exited his business for multiple 9 figures. And I was like, what now? And he just said, just copy what I did. And I was like, I told him, I said, I can't do that. I don't know why, it just felt wrong. I was like, I can't just copy what you did. And he was like, well, why not? And I was like, I actually don't know why not. That's a great question. So instead, I should have taken his advice sooner, but now I'm just doing that. And he was like, just copy what I did. I was like, fantastic, I'll do that. And so really, he identified a really good market to be able to go into, and we'll talk about that next. So part of it is the opportunity that you choose is going to determine much of your success. So this is arguably one of the most important things. As an example, your grocery store, when you go to the grocery store, they sell a lot of different products. So as an example, if cereal for some reason goes completely out of style and no one wants to buy cereal anymore for some weird reason, the actual business itself is not going to go under because no one's buying cereal anymore. They sell things like milk, they sell things like eggs, they sell things like, I don't know, whatever, but ice cream. Those are the things that I buy at the grocery store. So that's an example of why it's important to have multiple different avenues of approach, because the market changes. So like I said, if the cereal market crashes tomorrow and no one else wants to buy cereal, then at least you have other products to be able to sell. And so that's the important thing about business. If you sell one thing and it becomes no longer popular or there's no more demand, because at the end of the day, it's about how much demand that your product or service has, that's where you're going to run into issues. So that's the advantage of having a large suite of products. That's how to do that. So all right, let's talk about the why, what, how, and who. Why is arguably the most important thing. Now, what I mean by why is everyone has a number, and that is everyone has a number that they're just going to say, I'm done, I quit, or I don't feel like I have to work anymore. Now, that number may be so insanely high that you keep on working unreasonably long and for just whatever reason, or it could be really low. And so I've known this because I've seen success actually defeat more ambitious entrepreneurs that I've known, more so than failure has, because they get to that number and they say, I'm good, I quit. And I'm like, you will self-sabotage when you get to that number, whether it's by on purpose or on accident. Just mentally, you'll get in your own head and you'll say, but I'm good, I don't need any more money. Why should I work any harder? And that is what I mean by everyone has to get their number. So if you want to actually build a big, massive business and you want to build out a plan and a roadmap to it, you have to get really clear on your why. And if your why is so insanely big that the end of this business won't even solve it, then you probably have what it takes to actually stick this out, because it will get really hard. And if you've already reached your number where you're like, I'm good, I just give up, I let off the gas, your competition has not. And they will outwork you and outcompete you if you decide you want to take your foot off the gas. It's because the market wins, not what you necessarily want. So we talked a little bit about why and your number, which hopefully is larger than the goal that you have. Otherwise, you're just going to quit early, more than likely. Now let's talk about the what. So what is market selection? What is it that you're going to sell? This is the cereal box that I talked about earlier. Are you going to sell cereal, or are you going to sell a couple different things? And also, when your business gets big enough, I'll talk about a little bit later on in one of the later chapters, your what can be multiple things, and that's okay. And there's a way you actually sell multiple things, but usually you don't start off by selling multiple things, because if you sell multiple things, it's going to be very difficult to scale profitably. And you also think about what do the biggest businesses have. As an example, Amazon just doesn't have one product. When they first started, they just had books, and that's how they got started, but that's not how they continue to scale from there. So what the lesson that you should take away from that is, it's okay to have one thing at first, and if you're past $100,000 in revenue and monthly, then you can probably find other what's to sell. That's not a hard and fast rule. As I've learned, actually for me, it came at $50,000 a month, because I was like, this is not working. And I found that everyone else wanted two things instead of one, which ended up becoming the whole product. That's another story though. All right, so the market always wins. So what is this? What is demand and supply? And if you've taken any finance classes, finance is really one important thing that I think everyone should do. I'll do a video on it eventually, but finance is what the market wants, not what you want to sell. Because if you decide, I want to sell this thing and no one wants to buy it, you're going to run into issues. You're going to run into a marketing problem. So when I look at a market, I say, what exactly do I want to sell? I want to sell something that is in a high CAGR, or compounded annual growth rate. What that means is year over year, it's going to grow a certain amount. And because your market is growing, your business is inherently also going to grow, just because the market is expanding faster than the surrounding market. So as an example, if the market in general is growing by 2 to 3% GDP year over year, that's just generally how the global market grows. If you're beating that, you will inherently grow faster than the rest of the world business combined, just because your market is expanding. And so just by pure being in that market of it growing 10 or 20, or even we've seen businesses that grow at 100, percent year-over-year growth. Usually that's not, CAGR. That's usually not sustained for too long, but your business will have massive growth along with the market, because the market always wins. Good entrepreneur versus a bad market, market wins. Bad entrepreneur in a good market, market still wins. So that's the what that you guys are going to sell. Now, how are you going to sell that? That is the strategy that you go. This is your go-to-market strategy. And so you're going to say, what strategy am I going to take? Am I going to be the cheapest route? Am I going to be the most expensive route? There's a reason Walmart exists. It's the cheapest route, and you're going to go there and you're willing to overlook some of the flaws because you know you're getting a good deal, hopefully. So that's the actual strategy that you're going to go with. And that's part of market strategy. That's, once again, a whole nother video on itself. For me, what I've decided is I wanted to go with the most expensive. And the reason I wanted to go with the most expensive strategy in the marketplace, because I knew the market was going to support this, and I'm specifically choosing the solar industry right now as a what? Why? Because I love business and I love providing value to people. That's the why. And this goal is bigger than $250 million, much bigger than that. So The what is, for now, it's solar. And also, solar is not just an exclusive business. You can do roofing. If you're already in home services, you can do other things. What if it is snow season and you are in control of a massive labor force? You can do a lot of different things with that kind of business that you may not be able to do. You can buy a financing company and you can sell financing whenever you want. Well, if you wanted to, you could buy a warehouse business as well. You could buy a warehouse and then also become a distributor. So there's all these different ways on the what that you sell. This is the example of Amazon selling multiple products or your local grocery store selling multiple products. Same concept, different business model. So that's the what that I'm doing. And the strategy I want to go with is being one of the top most expensive, because that means I can spend more to get a customer. And it sounds very counterintuitive, but you should try to find ways to spend more to acquire a customer. Because if you can spend more to get a customer, you will win. You'll have more opportunities to be able to market. All right, so the strategy also comes down to leadership, because a strategy without a good leader is worthless. And what I mean by that is ideas are a dime a dozen. You can find them anywhere. They're super cheap. They're super abundant. Execution is where people fail. You can have an amazing idea and execute it poorly, and it will fail. You can also have a mediocre idea. It still has to be a good enough idea. You can have a mediocre idea and execute it flawlessly, and you will see more success than other people. An example of this is I use Apple because they are not the best at everything. They don't necessarily have the best documents. As an example, when you're using Notes on iPhone or you're using iMessage on iPhone, it's not the best. Arguably, something like Signal or iMessage, or sorry, what's the other one? WhatsApp. Those are arguably better apps because they have transcriptions built into them, they have read receipts, they had it built in beforehand. But because Apple ecosystem is executed very well, even though it's not as good as the alternative messaging platforms, I am going to use the Apple ecosystem just because it has better execution sometimes. So that's an example of execution. Let's talk about leadership. So leadership, your business will only be able to grow to the size of leader that you are, the level of leader that you are. So if you are a level 9 leader or a level 5 leader, let's just go with that. If you're a level 5 leader, your business, 5 out of 10, will only be able to grow to the level of leadership you are. So if you're not a very hard worker, your team's not going to be a very hard worker. If you like working Saturdays, today it's a Saturday, I'm working Saturdays, my team's also working Saturdays. Why? Because I realize the simple things. As an example, if I just work Saturdays an entire year, I gain 2 months on the average person. Why is that, you say? But Ocean, there's 30 days inside of a month. True, but also, if you're a normal business owner or you're a normal business, you are only working roughly 25 days out of the entire month because you're only working 5 days per month. So that means there are about 25 working days out of 1 month. And if there's 52 weeks in a year, and so there's 52 Saturdays, if I'm working 52 extra days that my competition is not, that means that I have 2 extra months out of an entire year that I'm working, that I'm making progress, that the competition is not. And it really does come down to just outworking people sometimes. And that's an example of leadership. So a level 5 leadership to level 6 leadership may just look like, hey, I'm gonna pull in weekends. And if you're like, I don't wanna work weekends, maybe business is not for you. Go home and sit on the couch. Seriously, it makes it easier for all the rest of us. When you're sitting on the couch, other people are succeeding. As an example, Walmart, very great book. It was actually written by Sam Walton just before he died. It was his autobiography. In there, he said, we like to work Saturdays as staff. We required our staff, our executive C-suite to work Saturdays. And we also, because we required our staff members, Walmart is open on Saturdays. So that's an example of sometimes you just have to outwork the other person. And Walmart is a great example of that. Instead of how, that's the how that you're going to accomplish this thing. Next part is who. And that goes with team right here. Team. More than likely, you're not going to do business on your own, especially if it's 250 million. Maybe you can. Really cool if you do. Let me know in the comments if you can do a solo business at 250 million. That's impressive. I will pay you for the consulting call. Here's the thing. I got really bummed out last year, and I was thinking, what is the point of this all? Because we're just going to get replaced by AI anyways. And I asked one of my mentors, who was also doing multiple 9 figures and has millions of subscribers. He He said, it's either humans with AI, so humans with tools versus other humans with tools, in which case it's relatively fair marketplace, so you just have to learn to use tool better, or it's humans versus AI, in which case we're all screwed and we're all gonna lose anyways. And so there's no point doing it anyways. So I figured, actually, yeah, that's a really great point. If AI does happen to take over, I'm out of a job anyways. But in the case that it doesn't and humans are still using AI to enhance their work and not totally replace them, then I'll be fine and I still have a job, at least for now. So that's an example of team execution with AI, and AI really will help you out. We talked about supply versus demand. So also tell you this, you want to recruit a team of experts, and this is where you have to lower yourself and your own ego. Many of the billionaires that I ascribe to or take advice from, they all say the same thing. I will find the experts in the field. I'll do research first, and then I'll find the experts in the field, and I'll just ask them what their opinion is, or I'll hire their experts. And you can't have a big business without big trust. You cannot build a big business without being able to have a team that you can trust. It's just not possible. And if you can find one without it, I will love to see it. Let me know in the comments below if I'm wrong. So that's why having a very good team of execution in place will make or break your business. Which leads us to our next point about team is you cannot, a business is a group of people. That's really what it comes down to, a group of people that are organized. And so you have to think about, do you want those team members to be very good at what they do, or do you want them to be very bad at what they do? And the way that you organize them and the people that you put in there is just as important as the skill level of the people that you put in there. Oh, yeah. And here's the most important thing though, hands down, about team. I know in 5 years what my team is going to look like, even if the product changes. Here's an example of that. I know that on our team, we're going to need about 1,000 staff members. Now, AI may change that because, once again, the market always changes, but if we're gonna do 250 million in revenue, we're gonna need about 1,000 employees. 100 of those are going to be sales team members because I know the size of our sales team. And because I know the law of management as an example, which means that you can manage up to 3 to 8 people, I know that for every 100 people, you're gonna need somewhere around 20-ish staff members on top of that to be able to help manage those people. So that's an example of team. And if you're curious about, I don't know how to build an org chart, go ask AI, say, I'm trying to build an org chart. Here's my business. Here's the revenue that I want to reach. What should my org chart look like? And it'll tell you roughly where you need to be spending, how much. And this is where, you also your team, you build out who else is needed on this team. I know that we're going to need a finance team. I know that we're going to need an HR. I know that we're going to need recruiting. I know that we're going to need legal. I know that we're going to need AI at that point. We're going to need something that does AI. We're going to need people who are technicians on the team. So those are all examples of I know what my team looks like. And here's the thought for you. If you have the person with a plan, or the people who want to just go around in the market guessing, I think we'll have success, maybe we'll have success, sure, a broken clock is right twice a day. However, if you have a plan of this is what market I have, why I'm doing this, I have what I'm gonna do. This is the market that I'm gonna do it, this is how I'm gonna do it, and this is who's gonna be on the bus. Who's gonna win? The person who knows very clearly, specifically, here's how we're going to execute on this thing, or the people who just wanna say, we'll hope to get lucky and we don't know what it's gonna look like, we don't have a direction. Once again, I think, me personally, and I could be wrong, let's check back in 5 years. If I haven't done this in 5 years, let me know in the comments below, but I will. So if you actually have a team, if you have a plan, and people can fit into that, you also become a better recruiter. So let's talk about what that means. People, especially on the bigger business side, they realize that the competition is for good talent. And when you have a plan to grow and you are reaching those targets, you then become the company that everyone wants to work for. As an example, NVIDIA had huge stock performance. And so if you just had NVIDIA on your resume that, oh, I worked at NVIDIA, that will probably land you a pretty good job because everyone looks at that and that brand association of success rubs off on you because NVIDIA is very successful. Oh, so if you were working at NVIDIA, you also must have been at least semi-successful or part of the team that was successful. So the same principle for your own business, if you assemble it and you become one of the fastest or best growing businesses, or like, we're going to build a huge team someday, and you can get the team on board, this goes into leadership, leveling up yourself as a leader. If you can get your team on board with that mission of here's what it's gonna look like, here's how we're gonna sell it, here's the company culture, here's what it's gonna look like, what are people gonna wear, What is our company culture going to be like? How are we going to take, what kind of vacation are we going to take? What kind of core values are we going to have? If you can get them on board with that vision, everyone will want to work at your business, and the best talent wants to be a part of people who have a team, because your market is growing and the people your customers who buy from you, they expect your company to be growing, whether it's improving the product, whether it's improving the service, whether it's improving the way that you handle the marketing, whatever it may be. So if you decide, hey, I don't want to grow business, just because you don't want to grow doesn't mean that your customers don't want a growing company either. And growing just means that it's changing or improving in some way. And so the same thing with your employees. An employee, would you rather, isn't it exciting to be a part of something that's growing to be this huge thing rather than being a part of a company that's remaining stagnant? I think that it's way more exciting to be a company that part of something that's growing, that's going big, that has a plan to do something amazing and have a massive impact in the world. And if that's not you, totally fine. But what I'm getting at here is most of the top talent, the people who are doers and goers in the world who want to do great things, those are the people who you want working your company, because they're going to help push your business forward. And they only want to work at a company that's growing. Now, assuming that you've also leveled up as a leader by building the team and getting really clear on your how and your who in the market, which we talked about, one of the next steps of leadership is you have to be able to get the skills to lead people properly. What I mean by that is if you do not get the skills of the people that you are leading, they will own you because they will know more than you. Now, I'm not saying that you should know more than everyone in your business, because that's actually not what you should be doing. But you should be able to know enough to have a conversation with them. If you're leading a tech team, you should know a little bit about tech. You should know enough to be able to lead them properly, understand expectations, and you should meet with your team and be able to communicate with them. That is what it means to be a more effective leader. In business, when you level up as a leader, you need to be able to go out and get the skills to become the leader. And that requires growth. It requires effort. It requires sacrifice. It requires you to actually go out and learn more. I know, boo-hoo. There was at a point where I hated learning more, mostly because school, I just didn't enjoy it. And rightfully so. School was not very good. And when online education came on, I started learning more online. I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. I get to learn at my own pace. I get to learn what I want from whoever I want. Honestly, especially with men, when men look at each other, and men want to follow a great leader. That's really a big thing that I've learned. And I've learned this in the military when I had multiple different leaders who were ahead of me. And I found people who I hated and I despised, who I honestly thought, I would not die for you in combat. And then there were other people who I thought, I would pull this man out of a firefight. Like, I would actually put my life on the line for you in combat. Right? And that's really the ultimate test of a good leader or not. And so I've had both, and I know what I'm willing to do for the leader that I care about and what I'm doing for the leader that I don't care about. And so you need to become the leader. And if you don't yet have the skills, that's okay. Go out and get the skills to become a leader. A good book recommendation is John Wooden's Wooden on Leadership. Great book. Absolutely love it. Great book on leadership. There's also a couple more that I'll put in the description specifically on leadership from people like Microsoft, those kinds of teams, very large teams. So that's what I mean by you really need to actually become a leader that people want to follow. And if you don't, they will go find someone else who they do want to follow. So I just want to wrap this up. And the final thing that I want to talk about is preparing for massive growth. And this is the hardest part. This is where you have to decide that I am not going to take money out of the business and suffocate it. So we have two businesses here, business A and business B. Let's talk about these two. So business A, on paper, let's say that you're making about $5 million every single year. That's about $400,000. I'm estimating about $400,000 every single month. And if you take out of the business, what is your potential earnings? And you'll know this in business if you actually study your finances, which you should be doing. Everyone should have an accountant, and you should be studying your numbers very well. Accounting is actually one of those things that's not super sexy, but it makes you more money than anything else. I guarantee it, and I'll explain why later. So out of that actual 5 million, you are taking home a lot of this. And so instead of reinvesting it, you're like, I just want a lifestyle business. I'm just gonna pull out a bunch of cash. And that's the issue. Herein lies the issue with company A. By the end of 4 years, you're gonna be at the same revenue because you decided to, instead of reinvesting that business, you've just taken up as much money as you could. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't take out any money, because obviously everyone needs to make money and I gotta respect it. But if you're not looking at the long game and willing to sacrifice what you want now to growing your business tomorrow, you're gonna have issues. And what I mean by that is this. Let's look at company B. Company B, by the end of 4 years, is now at 10 million. Why? Because they decided to, instead of taking money out, they kept money in their business. Why? Because company B, the smarter company, you guys, because you're watching this content, know that if I put $1 into my business, I'm gonna get $10 out. Not just anywhere, but specifically in marketing. There's obviously other places that you could put it, but marketing is gonna be, direct response marketing is gonna be one of your best places to put it in. As an example, last year, the average ROAS that I got was 12. I put $1 in and I got $12 out. That's average. The best ROAS I got for 4 months was 100x ROAS. Insane, but I was able to sustain it for 4 months. Be honest, super difficult. Loved that time. I will have a hard time replicating that exact success, but 100x is still really good. So I know that if I put the money back into the business and I say no to $1 today, it's gonna mean so much more. An example of this is if you go to the retirement calculator from Ramsey Solutions, if you go Google Ramsey Solutions retirement calculator, you'll actually see how much $1 is worth if you just reinvested in the S&P 500. And why is that? That's because these companies know that. And so if you put $1 in today to the S&P 500, that dollar is going to double roughly every 7 to 8 years. Now, in a smaller scale on a business, businesses can actually move a little bit quicker than the S&P 500 can. Why? Now, the S&P 500 is usually less risky than a small business. The reason that an S&P 500 usually can't outperform a smaller business is because a smaller business is more maneuverable. It's like a speedboat. It can make changes as needed. It can have more efficient marketing processes. Whereas if you're a Fortune 500 company, usually changing those businesses around becomes a little bit more difficult. Therefore, they're less volatile up and down. They have less potential upside, but by and large, they're still going to be more stable. They're going to have less likelihood of failing. And there's 500 of them, so there you go. There's another advantage. So that's an example of how you should just delay what you put off taking out money in the business and instead put it back into your business, because $1 today can turn into $10 tomorrow. And you can continue doing that over a longer period of time. So that is really how I look at it. Furthermore, this is how big companies become even bigger. So as an example, if you go read Jeff Bezos' letters to the shareholders for his first very long time, you'll know he said ever since the beginning, in almost every single shareholder letter, he said we're always long-term focused. And he took out Amazon on paper has, quote, very low margins. But it's because at any point they could decide to flip a switch and become more profitable. And the reason that they don't is because they reinvest everything into the company because they're so long-term. Actually, pretty great strategy, working out, sounds like it's working out pretty well for them. I don't know if you consider Amazon a successful company or not. I think it's relatively successful, and I would like to see some of that success. And once again, as I learned from one of my mentors, like I told you earlier, just copy what the greats did. I didn't realize this until the end. I was just like, man, I just copy what people who are qualified to do to say what they're saying, and also businesses who have gone big, just copy them. Copy Walmart, copy Amazon, copy, what else is a big business? Microsoft, Apple. You may not be able to compete with those bigger businesses, but just copy the bigger business, because more than likely the bigger business is the one that's going to be the most already have done it right. Not always true, but generally holds true. So if you're going to copy anyone, copy a big business. So that's all I got. And if you found that interesting, you can watch the next video right there. And I'll see you on the other side.